My childhood friend Ethan Johnson's uncle Oscar committed suicide. Before his death, someone discovered hundreds of unsent love letters in his drawer. Each letter was addressed to me. So, in this second chance at life, when my mother asked if I wanted to marry my childhood friend Ethan, I shook my head and resolutely chose to marry his uncle Oscar instead. I harbor a secret. I have been reborn. In my previous life, I chose to marry my childhood sweetheart Ethan Johnson. However, after our marriage, Ethan was frequently absent from home. Later, when I suffered severe bleeding during pregnancy, he abandoned me in my dangerous condition simply because his first love, Stella Locke, said, "The power's out at my place, and I'm scared." He left without hesitation. Eventually, both my unborn child and I died from the hemorrhage. After my death, Ethan didn't shed a single tear. He even complained that my death had disrupted his travel plans with his first love. When I miraculously opened my eyes again, given a second chance, I had returned to the day my mother asked me who I wanted to marry. Amanda Brown, have you really thought this through? You and Ethan grew up together. Are you sure you want to marry his maternal uncle Oscar? Faced with my mother's repeated questioning, I consistently answered, "Yes, I'm sure." "All right, as long as you truly love him, your father, and I will start arranging your wedding right away." My mother was even more eager than I was. That very day, she went to ask Oscar about his thoughts. After receiving his affirmative response, she rushed to the wedding planning company to book an outdoor venue. Shortly after booking the wedding venue, Ethan called. His voice was filled with impatience. "Amanda, have you no shame? You initially forced our elders to arrange our marriage, and now you have gone behind my back and booked a wedding venue? Don't you have any modesty as a woman? Are you that desperate to get married? Amanda, your desperate, cheap behavior makes me utterly despise you." I pressed my lips tightly together, pausing briefly before explaining, "Ethan, I never intended to marry you in this lifetime. The person I want to marry is..." But he didn't give me a chance to finish, interrupting me with a cold laugh. "Amanda, so you've learned to play hard to get now. Why didn't I see through your true intentions earlier? Even if you plan the wedding perfectly, what difference does it make? I love Stella, and she's the only one I'll ever marry. My heart belongs entirely to Stella. Your pathetic actions only disgust me to my core." With that, he hung up, leaving me to swallow the explanation I wanted to give. Never mind. Soon enough, he discovered that I wasn't planning to marry him at all. My family and the Johnson family had been close associates for generations, a traditional relationship highly valued in our community. Ethan and I grew up in the same residential compound, truly childhood sweethearts who shared everything. After we celebrated Christmas that year, our parents arranged our marriage, following the traditional custom of family-arranged unions. But in my previous life, he suddenly proposed canceling our engagement to marry someone else. I refused to agree, which led to a huge argument. Although I eventually married Ethan as I wished, he rarely came home after our wedding. When I finally became pregnant, he moved in with Stella, and I barely saw him except during family gatherings. As my due date approached, the senior family members who traditionally had authority in family matters forced me to return home. However, on the first night back, we had a fierce argument that caused me to hemorrhage severely. I was terrified and begged Ethan to take me to the hospital, but one phone call from Stella was enough to make him leave. In the end, both my unborn child and I died. My poor baby never even had a chance to see this world. After my death, Ethan didn't even attend my funeral, immediately taking Stella on vacation instead. My parents, heartbroken, fell ill from grief and passed away shortly after. My family's assets ultimately fell into Ethan's hands, while he and Stella grew old together, surrounded by children and grandchildren. In my previous life, my decision to marry Ethan led to a devastating tragedy, resulting in the loss of both my family and my life. In this life, I absolutely cannot make the same mistake. I must protect those who truly love me. After we finalized the wedding venue, my mother kept urging me to pick out a wedding dress. Oscar Hunter had already selected our wedding rings abroad, designed by one of the most renowned international designers. Since he was negotiating business overseas and couldn't return immediately, he sent me a black card as an apology. I had reserved the latest wedding dress from Christmas, a high-end designer brand, which had just been shipped this morning. The store assistant called to invite me for a fitting. But as soon as I walked into the bridal shop, I saw Ethan sitting in the waiting area. When he looked up and saw me, his brows immediately furrowed tightly. "What are you doing here?" I answered softly, "Trying on a wedding dress." Perhaps my expression was too calm, as he seemed surprised before scoffing. "Amanda, are there really no other men in this world? Do you absolutely have to marry me?" I stared at this too familiar face before me, a bitter smile forming at the corner of my lips. I simply couldn't connect this man with the Ethan who once carried me on his back when I had stomach pains, desperately running through pouring rain. Ever since Stella appeared, he was no longer the Ethan who had carefully protected me. Fortunately, in this life, I finally didn't have to be entangled with him anymore. I looked at him calmly and responded coolly, "Ethan, I told you, I'm not going to marry you. You're right, there are other men in this world, and I won't cling to you anymore." With that, I walked straight into the wedding dress display area without giving him another glance. However, before I could get far, Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist with a quick, jerking motion, his tone severe. "Amanda, what exactly are you trying to do?" I struggled to break free, but his grip was too strong. I sighed helplessly. "Ethan, what do you want?" I said, "I'll never want to marry you in this lifetime, and I won't bother you anymore." "Isn't that exactly what you want?" He glared at me with a cold smile. "You deliberately chose today to try on wedding dresses, and you say you don't want to marry me?" He glanced toward the fitting room, his eyes full of love. "Stella is the only woman I'll ever love. Give up already. I told my family last night that I'm canceling our engagement. Even if my entire family disagrees, I'm going to marry Stella, no matter the cost." The cost Ethan mentioned was simply giving up everything the Johnson family had given him. He had started his own company, which was doing fairly well, but compared to the Johnson family enterprises, it was nothing. I smiled politely and said softly, "Well, I wish you both happiness. Don't worry, I'm getting married to someone else soon, so our engagement is already void." I gestured for Ethan to let go, but he kept staring at me, refusing to release my wrist. "Amanda, what game are you playing now? Who else could you possibly marry besides me?" My wrist hurt from his grip, bringing tears to my eyes. Just then, Stella walked out. She exclaimed in surprise, "Ethan, what are you two doing?" Ethan immediately released my hand and rushed to Stella's side, trying to take her hand. When Stella instinctively pulled away, he quickly understood and softened his tone, saying, "I'll go wash my hands thoroughly in the restroom. Wait for me." Stella and I locked eyes, and hers were filled with undisguised contempt and triumph. That's when I noticed she was wearing the wedding dress I had reserved. The store assistant who followed her out called anxiously, "Ms. Locke, this dress has already been reserved by someone else. Please look at other styles. We just received several new designs by air this morning." Stella glared at the assistant angrily and said in a harsh tone, "My fiancé is the future heir of the Johnson family and is very close with your boss. My fiancé said I can try on whatever I want, he can afford it. Besides, this dress was only reserved, not purchased. Why can't I try it on?" She turned to me with malice. "Right, Amanda? Even marriages can be called off, let alone a reserved wedding dress." The assistant finally noticed my arrival and was nearly in tears. "I'm so sorry, Miss Brown. This dress just arrived this morning, and I didn't have time to put it away before Ms. Locke tried it on." I didn't want to make things difficult for the assistant, and besides, I no longer wanted a dress someone else had worn. I smiled nonchalantly at the assistant. It's fine. If Ms. Locke likes it, let her have it. You received your store's crown jewel this morning too, right? Take me to see that one. I patted the black card in my bag. Since my future husband was so eager for me to spend his money, I'd indulge him just this once. Ethan came out just in time to hear my words. He looked at me coldly. Amanda, can you stop embarrassing yourself? I've said I'm marrying Stella, not you. Why are you making a fool of yourself? And, do you even know how much that crown jewel costs? 10 million. How could you possibly afford it? I smiled, took out the black card, and handed it to the assistant. No need to try it on. I'll take it. I turned and left, with Ethan's shocked expression and Stella's jealous glare following me. That evening, I had a video call with Oscar. This was my first time talking face to face with him since my rebirth, and I felt somewhat nervous. We agreed to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get our marriage certificate on the morning of his return. Although we were about to become husband and wife, I still found it a bit amusing, considering we barely knew each other. Ethan called immediately after, interrogating me. Amanda, where did you get the money to buy such an expensive wedding dress? You haven't been doing something shady behind my back, have you? And your behavior at the bridal shop today was deliberately targeting Stella, wasn't it? Didn't I warn you to stop bothering my fiancé? You've been busy preparing for a wedding these past few days just to force me to marry you, right? Let me tell you, no matter what you do, I will never marry you. I had just finished my call with Oscar and was in a good mood, but Ethan completely ruined it. Irritated to my core, I snapped back. Ethan, this is the last time I'm explaining this to you. The person I'm marrying is not you. He was driving me absolutely insane, but no matter how I explained, he refused to believe me. That night, Ethan updated his Facebook. Getting our marriage certificate on the 18th of this month with my first love. All friends are welcome to witness our happiness. Good for them, they were getting their certificate. As fate would have it, Oscar and I had scheduled to get ours on the same day. Ethan had been busy taking wedding photos with Stella these past few days, so he hadn't bothered me again. On the day we were to get our certificates, I wore my multi-million-dollar wedding dress and waited for Oscar outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. Just thinking about his stunned expression when he would see me made me smile softly. I deliberately waited until after Ethan and Stella had gone inside before getting out of my car, as I didn't want any unnecessary trouble on such an important day. But unexpectedly, I couldn't avoid it. Amanda? Is that you? A man who entered after me called out, immediately drawing the attention of Ethan group waiting in line ahead. My God, today is Ethan and his wife's big day, and you're dressed so formally? You're truly a dedicated, pathetic follower, wearing a wedding dress and chasing him all the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Hearing the commotion, Ethan walked over. When he saw it was really me, his face darkened with contempt and he shouted, Amanda, what are you doing here? Dressed like this? How desperate can you be? Do you think I'll marry you if you do this? If that's what you're thinking, you're wasting your time. I will never marry you. The only person I'm marrying is Stella. As he spoke, he pulled Stella close and looked at me provocatively. I was both speechless and amused. I said firmly, I've told you, the person I'm marrying is not you. I'm dressed like this, but not for you. My fiancé will be here any minute, so please stay away from me. His friends burst into laughter, mocking me for going to extremes to marry Ethan, joking that I had taken being a desperate admirer to a new level. Amanda, we're all tired of your playing hard to get. Stop dreaming. Ethan is about to get his marriage certificate with his fiancée. If you're that desperate to get married, just pick one of us. Honestly, I'd like to try being with Ethan's devoted follower for once. With a disdainful smirk, Ethan sneered. You guys are really interested in such a boring, flavorless woman? Forget it. Whoever can get her, she's yours. I wouldn't take her even if she were given to me for free. Hearing Ethan's insulting words, my anger boiled over. I raised my hand to slap him, but he caught my wrist. I glared at him fiercely, my eyes burning with rage. Ethan, are you incapable of understanding? I've said it before, the person I'm marrying today is not you. And the person I've always wanted to marry was never you. He didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed with cruel amusement. Amanda, who would believe that? You have been dreaming of marrying me since you were 5, and every Christmas for years you've been crazy in love with me, even resorting to forcing a marriage. But now you say you're not marrying me? Fine, tell me then, where is this person you're dressed up for? It's been quite a while, and there's still nowhere to be seen. I yanked my hand away from his grip, my face flushed red. His humiliating words had brought tears to my eyes. Just then, a deep voice sounded from behind me. Ethan, let her go. Ethan looked up at the sound, immediately releasing my hand and standing straight. It was clear he still feared his Uncle Oscar. Uncle Oscar, what brings you here? Weren't you handling business matters abroad? Under Oscar's intense gaze, he shifted uncomfortably before turning to me with anger flashing in his eyes. Uncle Oscar, this isn't my fault. It's all because of this cheap woman. He pointed at my face accusingly. This is Amanda, Uncle Oscar. You must remember her? She's been desperate to marry me, and today she even showed up in a wedding dress to cause trouble, yet she has the nerve to claim she's not here to marry me. He roughly grabbed my shoulder, his voice filled with rage. Amanda, explain yourself to my Uncle Oscar right now. Tell him the truth. But in the next moment, Oscar pulled me into his arms. She indeed isn't here to marry you. She's here to marry me. I looked up, meeting his deep, penetrating gaze. He affectionately wrapped his arm around my shoulder, signaling me not to worry, and whispered in my ear, "Don't worry, I'm here for you now." Those simple words meant more to me than 1,000 promises. Ethan stood frozen in disbelief, his face turning ashen. His eyes reddened as he clenched his jaw, staring at Oscar's hand on my shoulder. "I don't believe it," he said, his voice trembling. "Uncle Oscar, how could you possibly marry someone like her?" Suddenly, he started laughing and turned to me. "Amanda, I get it now. This is just another one of your schemes to marry me, isn't it? You've really outdone yourself, getting my Uncle Oscar to play along in this little act." Seeing me standing firmly beside Oscar with no intention of moving, he lost his temper and shouted my name. "Amanda, get over here now. Stay away from my Uncle Oscar." When I still didn't move, he lunged forward to grab me. I moved closer to Oscar, avoiding Ethan's outstretched hand, though he still managed to wrinkle my wedding dress. Oscar's expression turned serious, his thoughts unreadable. He bent down and carefully straightened my dress, then fixed Ethan with a cold stare. "I won't repeat myself. Amanda is marrying me. After today, she'll be your aunt." With that, he took my hand and led me into the marriage registration office. Ethan stood there, mouth agape, too stunned to react. He was still sitting in the waiting area, head down and lost in thought, when Oscar and I emerged with our marriage certificate. Stella sat beside him, shooting me a venomous glare when she saw me. I was prepared to ignore them, better to avoid unnecessary trouble. But Oscar led me directly to Ethan and said in a stern voice, "Ethan, control your companion." A warm feeling suddenly washed over me. In my previous life, I had always chased after Ethan, and he treated me like I was at his beck and call. Being protected by a man like this was a first for me, especially now that this man was my lawful husband. Ethan looked at me, then at Oscar, his expression complicated. "Uncle Oscar, don't let this woman fool you. She's quite the actress. She used to do anything to marry me, you know that. She must have manipulated you somehow into marrying her. She's incredibly calculating. Don't fall for her tricks." Oscar narrowed his eyes, his gaze turning icy. "Ethan, I told you Amanda is now your aunt. Show some respect." Otherwise, I won't let it slide. Also, our wedding is in 10 days, and I hope you and your companion won't attend. Your aunt doesn't want to see you there. I couldn't help but smile. The feeling of being protected by someone who cared was beautiful, something I'd never experienced in my previous life. In my past life, Ethan had actually been good to me before meeting Stella. Knowing my weak stomach and my dislike for breakfast, he would wake up early every day to prepare delicious meals that suited my taste. I'd always had a weak constitution, and he was even more concerned about my health than I was. At the slightest change in weather, he would remind me to dress warmly. Whenever other men approached me, he would immediately step in to claim me as his, driving them away. He would warn me that those men had bad intentions and that I should stay away from them. He even said that since we'd known each other since childhood, it made more sense for him to marry me than to let some other man have me. I once believed I would marry him and live happily ever after. But then he met his first love, Stella, and began to grow impatient with me. Gradually, everything changed. Now, Ethan stared intently at my face, his eyes dark with emotion. Don't worry, Uncle Oscar and Auntie. I'll definitely attend your wedding on time. As family, it would be disrespectful not to attend Uncle Oscar and Auntie's wedding. He deliberately emphasized the word auntie. Oscar smiled faintly and led me away by the hand. Only after we stepped outside did I feel that intense stare from behind finally fade away. That evening, I accompanied Oscar to a family dinner at the Hunters. Everyone in the Hunter family knew that Ethan and I had grown up together, and they had always assumed we would marry someday. Although they were puzzled by my sudden marriage to Oscar, no one showed it, still warmly offering us their congratulations. After the dinner, Oscar drove me home. Neither of us spoke during the journey, quietly enjoying the peaceful silence. It was strange. Oscar and I weren't particularly close, yet being together didn't feel awkward at all. Especially after my rebirth, knowing how deeply he had loved me in my previous life made me feel incredibly secure around him. What are you thinking about? Oscar broke the silence as I was about to get out of the car, his voice gentle. I smiled softly, looking at him. Nothing really. It just doesn't feel quite real. I never expected you to agree so quickly and decisively to marry me. It's quite surprising. He smiled at me affectionately, almost tenderly, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was an exquisite diamond ring. I've had this ring ready for 7 Christmases now. Learning that you wanted to marry me was the most exciting moment of my life. Amanda, my love for you has endured for so long, so you shouldn't be so surprised. Though I already knew he had loved me for years, hearing him say it aloud made me lower my head shyly. Before getting out of the car, I leaned over and kissed him, then jumped out with flushed cheeks. Oscar came after me, catching my arm from behind. My face grew even redder as I wondered whether to accept or reject if he tried to kiss me. The atmosphere suddenly became noticeably awkward. Just then, Ethan rushed out, breaking the tension. His eyes reflected complex emotions. Without even glancing at me, he addressed Oscar. Uncle Oscar, I need to speak with Amanda. Could I have a moment alone with her? Oscar didn't answer directly, instead turning to ask for my opinion. I hesitated, initially wanting to refuse outright. But considering the special relationship between Ethan and Oscar, I felt I should clear things up with him. Seeing me nod, Oscar also nodded to Ethan. Ethan and I walked to a quiet corner, and he spoke first. Amanda, you got my Uncle Oscar to act in this little play just to provoke me, didn't you? Going to the bridal shop on the same day as me, even getting your marriage license on the same day, you can't tell me that wasn't deliberate. I sighed softly, wanting to explain it was merely coincidence. Ethan gave a cold laugh. You thought of everything, even preparing a fake marriage certificate. Well, Amanda, you've succeeded in provoking me. I suddenly realized I can't accept you marrying another man, even if that man is my Uncle Oscar. He looked at me with a hint of resentment and sorrow. Amanda, my uncle Oscar is a very busy man. Stop wasting his time. I admit defeat, and I regret my actions. I thought I loved Stella, but now I realize I can't let you go. So, Amanda, please stop the charade. I promise not to get a marriage license with Stella yet, and you stop using Uncle Oscar to make me jealous, okay? As Ethan waited for my answer, I unconsciously glanced toward Oscar. As if sensing my gaze, Oscar immediately turned to look at me. I blushed instantly and lowered my head. When I looked up again, I saw Ethan's eyes had reddened. Amanda, is this what you call loving me? It's only been a few days, and you're already exchanging glances with another man? I cleared my throat and said seriously, Ethan, I apologize for my past behavior. Back during those Christmas seasons when I was younger, I was foolish and immature, mistaking our childhood friendship for love. But watching you chase after Stella made me realize that what I felt for you wasn't love. It was just childhood affection. So please, don't say such things anymore. And for the record, Oscar and I really did get married. We're legally husband and wife. Ethan seemed unable to believe it, gripping my shoulders tightly, his voice filled with anguish. I don't believe it. You loved me so much. How could you possibly abandon me to marry someone else? I forcefully freed myself from his grip and, with a composed expression and calm voice, said, But that's the reality. The wedding preparations, the bridal gown fitting, it was all for Oscar. I've explained this to you many times, but you refuse to listen. Ethan looked on the verge of collapse, stepping back. He was about to lunge forward and grab me again, when a woman's voice from behind interrupted him. Ethan! Stella rushed over to Ethan's side, her eyes red with tears. Ethan, didn't you tell me how much you hated Amanda's pathetic way of clinging to you? But what are you doing now? Today you suddenly said you didn't want to get married, and you wouldn't even give me a reason. Was it just so you could come find her? She turned to me. Amanda, you're already married to another man, so why can't you leave Ethan alone? Or is it that even after getting married, you still can't get over him? Amanda, how can you be so shameless? Fighting back my anger, I gave Stella an icy stare. First, I'm not the one clinging to him, he's clinging to me. Second, watch your language. Finally, take him and stay away from me. I'd prefer never to see either of you again. My glare intimidated Stella. She opened her mouth to speak, but ultimately remained silent, then tugged at Ethan's arm to leave. But Ethan suddenly raised his hand and slapped Stella across the face. Shut up. How dare you insult Amanda? What right do you have to talk to her like that? Stella clutched her cheek as tears streamed down her face. Ethan, you actually hit me? You hit me because of this woman? Weren't you the one who said she was always clinging to you? Ethan's face flushed red and white in turns before he exploded in embarrassed rage. That's between Amanda and me. It's none of your business. Get out of here and stop bothering me. Stella shot me a venomous glare before running away in tears. Once Stella was gone, Ethan immediately stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. Amanda, you heard it. I didn't marry Stella. I'm so sorry. I only realized my true feelings today, but it's not too late. I'll break up with Stella. I know you hate her, and I promise I'll never contact her again. I'll cut her off completely. Amanda, I know you got Oscar to play along in this charade just to provoke me. You did it because you love me so much. I understand everything. His self-assured, passionate gaze made me deeply uncomfortable. Still, I patiently took out our marriage certificate from my purse and opened it for him to see. Ethan, Oscar, and I are legally married. This has the official seal from the marriage registry. It's not fake. Panic filled Ethan's eyes as he trembled slightly. Amanda, why? I haven't even gotten married yet. How could you bear to marry someone else first? I looked at him in disbelief. Ethan, I don't owe you anything, and I'm not going to revolve my life around you. Now you should finally get the message and stop pursuing me. From now on, We're just distant relatives, nothing more." I turned and walked away to find Oscar. Ethan stood frozen in place. I could hear him sobbing behind me, but I had barely taken 2 steps when I sensed him following me. Suddenly, he wrapped his arms around me with desperate force. "Amanda, I've thought it through. I don't care that you're married. I know you only did it because I hurt you so deeply. If you just file for divorce tomorrow, I can still accept you. We can build a life together and never be apart again, okay?" His tears fell onto my neck, wet and cool against my skin. "Amanda, I truly can't live without you. I have to admit it, I love you. And I've loved you for so very long," he continued murmuring, pouring out his declarations of love, while I struggled with all my might but couldn't break free. Oscar was in his car nearby. Initially, I had been visible to him, but when Ethan grabbed me from behind, we happened to be hidden behind a billboard. Ethan's arms tightened around me, his head nestled in the crook of my neck as he leaned in to kiss me. Just as I was about to cry out, I felt the pressure suddenly release. Ethan collapsed to the ground, howling in pain. Then I found myself in a warm embrace. Oscar held me tightly against him, whispering reassuringly, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Ethan struggled to his feet, confronting Oscar. "Uncle Oscar, what are you doing? You know Amanda has loved me for all these Christmases. Why are you coming between us?" Oscar responded coldly, "She's mine now, and no one can touch her, including you." With that, he led me away. Ethan shouted defiantly behind us, "Amanda, I won't give up." But I didn't look back. From the moment Oscar and I got our marriage certificate, everything between Ethan and me became firmly part of the past. Oscar and I scheduled our wedding, and finally, in this life, I wouldn't have to endure the pain I suffered in my previous one. After our wedding photo shoot, we barely had time to see each other face to face, both caught up in the whirlwind of wedding preparations. The wedding day approached quickly. Ethan seemed to have vanished after that day and never bothered me again. However, he had asked to cancel his engagement to Stella, which earned him a severe scolding from the family elders. Previously, when he canceled his engagement to me to marry Stella, the elders had strongly disapproved. Despite their objections, they eventually gave in when they couldn't change his stubborn mind. Now, just as he was about to marry Stella, he suddenly backed out, and the family discovered it was because of me. They were absolutely livid, practically driven to the edge of sanity with anger. But since I was already married to Oscar, the Johnson family could only persuade Ethan to abandon his feelings for me and focus on building a life with Stella. Desperate to reconcile with Ethan, Stella eventually approached me for help. She showed no humility whatsoever, speaking to me as if negotiating a business deal, her chin tilted upward with arrogance. "Amanda, helping me would actually be helping yourself too." Though I didn't understand what she meant, I wanted nothing more to do with anything related to Ethan. I firmly refused Stella's request without a second thought. She glared at me with pure hatred before her lips curled into an eerie smile. "Amanda, don't say I didn't warn you." I just smiled and shook my head. My only regret was marrying Ethan in my previous life. In this life, I had chosen Oscar, and I would never regret it. Little did I know that by the time I truly understood the meaning behind Stella's words, it would be too late. On my wedding day, I woke up early, did my makeup, put on my wedding dress, and then got into the wedding car to head to the venue. The car had been driving for quite a while, but we still hadn't arrived at the venue. Looking at the increasingly remote scenery outside the window, I grew more and more anxious. My phone and purse were with my family, whose car was following behind. I asked the driver how much longer it would take, but he completely ignored me. That's when I noticed that the driver was wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a mask, covering his entire face. My heart sank as a sense of foreboding washed over me. I quickly looked back and realized that the cars that had been following us were nowhere to be seen. Finally alert to the danger, I tried to open the car door. But the car suddenly accelerated, throwing me back onto the seat from the momentum. Just as I tried to get up, the car made a sharp turn onto a country road, eventually stopping in front of an abandoned factory. At that moment, the driver removed his hat, glasses, and mask. Before he even turned around, I had already recognized him. Ethan, how can it be you? I finally understood what Stella had said that day, that helping her meant helping myself. She had known about Ethan's crazy plan all along. I glared at Ethan furiously and accused him. Ethan, what the hell are you doing? Take me back right now. The wedding is about to start. But Ethan acted as if he hadn't heard me and suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. After he finished laughing, he pushed open the car door, got out, then yanked me from the back seat and dragged me into the factory. I struggled desperately, screaming for help. But the surroundings were completely silent, without another soul in sight. Ethan was incredibly strong. My wrist ached from his grip, and my wedding dress was getting soiled by the dust on the ground. Ethan, calm down and let me go. What you're doing is illegal, do you understand? If you release me now, I promise not to press charges. Ethan, you're still young. Don't ruin your life over a moment of impulse by doing something you can't take back. But no matter what I said, he wouldn't respond. When we finally reached the depths of the factory, he threw me to the ground. Ignoring the pain in my body, I was stunned by the sight before me. He hadn't been idle these past days. He had set up a wedding venue here. I looked at the nearly deranged Ethan in disbelief and said, "Have you lost your mind?" Only then did he turn to look at me, crouching down to say, "Yes, I have lost my mind. I've been crazy since the day you left with Oscar, but you drove me to this. Amanda, I told you I regretted everything and wouldn't marry anyone else, but you still insisted on going through with the wedding to Oscar. It doesn't matter though. I've taken you back now. I've prepared the wedding venue, and I've even set up our bridal chamber in the back. After our ceremony, we'll go to the bedroom. Then you'll never be able to leave me again." His eyes were bloodshot as he trembled, gripping my chin and saying, "Amanda, I told you I wouldn't give up. Now, you're finally back by my side. Enough talk. The auspicious time is almost here. We mustn't delay our wedding." He pressed a remote control, and the lights and sound system turned on simultaneously. Ethan forcibly dragged me onto the stage and recited his wedding vows to me. "Amanda, I love you. I promise to be devoted to you from now on, never to leave or abandon you." He knelt on one knee and took out a wedding ring, trying to put it on my finger. I clenched my fist, refusing to wear it. "Ethan, this is completely meaningless. I don't love you anymore. You're in the past for me. Besides, Oscar and I are legally married. That's a fact that can't be changed. Let me go and stop this obsession." A flash of clarity appeared in Ethan's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by madness. "So, what if you're married? You can get divorced. Once I take you to the bridal chamber, you'll be my woman. I'll stay here with you until you're pregnant with my child. Then you'll never be able to leave me. Even if you go back to Oscar with our child, we'll be connected for life. Amanda, I'm willing to share you with Oscar if I must. As long as you stay by my side, it doesn't matter if you love him more, I promise not to be jealous." After saying this, he dragged me toward the room in the back, where I immediately saw the red drapes and bedsheets. I was fighting back tears, feeling utterly helpless. The vast difference in our strength made me increasingly desperate. Just as I was about to give up resisting, there was a sudden loud crash. It was the police who rescued me. Oscar rushed in behind them, his face contorted with anxiety. When he saw I was safe, tears fell from his eyes. Oscar and I had no time to talk as I had to give my statement to the police first. After hearing my account of everything that happened, Oscar could no longer control himself. He rushed over and kicked Ethan several times. "Only because we're relatives am I not killing you. You can reflect on your actions in prison." Following Ethan's arrest, Oscar refused any form of settlement or mediation. He hired the best lawyer and demanded the maximum sentence for Ethan, who was formally charged with kidnapping and attempted coercion. Our wedding was postponed for a week. After the wedding ceremony, Oscar took me abroad for our honeymoon. From then on, we began our sweet married life. 2 years later, our first child was born. When our child turned 1, I suggested having more children. But Oscar firmly refused. Leaning on my shoulder, he said plaintively, "Honey, since we had the baby, you haven't loved me as much as before. Now that the baby is finally weaned and can stay with the grandparents, I'd be a fool to want a second child. I'm not going to willingly share your attention again." I smiled helplessly. I'd never seen someone jealous of their own child before. However, not long after, I became pregnant with our second child. Looking at the 2 lines on the pregnancy test, Oscar's face turned completely grim. "Honey, I really don't want to compete with these little ones for your love anymore. After this one, please don't have any more, okay?" he pleaded with a pitiful expression. Seeing his woeful eyes, I nodded in agreement. From now on, the 4 of us will live happily ever after.
The end.
Thank you for watching our video. For more amazing stories, make sure to subscribe to our channel.